Welcome back into One Winning Pod, where Week 8 of the 2023 regular season in the NFL is fast approaching, and the Ravens will be looking to keep their foot on the gas pedal as they travel west to Phoenix, Arizona, to take on the Cardinals. And here to talk about it with us is a special guest who we're honored to have on the show. He played tight end in the National Football League as well as minor league baseball prior to that. Ed Smith, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on, man.
So, man, I guess to start out with it, obviously the Ravens were coming off a big win here, a much bigger win than we were expecting against Detroit. We were all expecting that to be a tight battle. Detroit, good year. Arizona, you guys look great against Dallas, have fought in some games, but unfortunately the record not super great so far. But what are you seeing from this team that's giving you excitement?
Well, at the beginning of even the takeover, new regime, Austin Fort, Gannon and the new staff, we were a little perplexed out here through the summer thinking, about that T word everybody was talking about, that big tank, and the thing that I was worried about was not only were we going to tank, but it was just going to look horrendous. And because we don't have a lot of talent on this roster. And surprisingly, the first few weeks of the season, the Cardinals not only debunked the tank thing, we're actually playing well and should have won a couple of the early games. We gave up a lead in both Washington and the Giants. We floundered a 20-point lead at the half. And, it was almost like, my theory was it's not going to be the wins and losses. It's going to be how we look in these games. And they started off looking pretty good. And over the last few weeks, even after that surprising win against Dallas, the last few weeks have kind of looked like everybody thought it was going to look. We've kind of regressed a little bit where we're, not playing well, overmatched on the field as far as talent. And it is kind of, we took a right turn to end up where we thought we were going to be in the beginning. At right now currently 1-6, could easily be 0-7, or it could be like 4-3. But I mean, we're respectively. The great thing I think is that we're at least out there fighting. We don't have a lot of talent, but we're at least out there fighting. And we'll see if we can scratch a couple of wins out moving forward. But it's been a rough ride these first 7, I should say.
Well, Ed, one question I have for you is, they brought in a new coach, Jonathan Gannon from Philadelphia, their defensive coordinator. How do you feel like he's been able to lead this team, and what's the overall sentiment right now with Jonathan?
He's done a pretty good job. It's kind of, first year coaches, you got to kind of let them learn on the fly. You guys have been spoiled over there with Harbaugh for a long time. And, shout out to Harbaugh as well. He was my special teams coach when I was in Philly. Absolutely love that dude. But Gannon, and his staff, they're really trying to figure it out. What I do like is they've taken, and, I wouldn't like to use the C word around here too much, that culture thing, but he's actually creating a good culture within the building. We had a little loose ship over here for the last few years with Kingsbury, and Gannon kind of came in, set some rules, set some standards, and also, kind of preach to the guys, regardless of, what the final score is, we're going to go out there and play hard. And that's what I've seen so far, which has been encouraging. They obviously stripped the roster down to the bone. You can't expect much when, we're have lack of talent like as we do, and obviously playing with a backup quarterback. But, I like what I've seen as far as, nobody's giving up out there on the field, fighting hard to the last whistle. And, even with the 1-6 record, it's been respectable so far.
Yeah, I mean, think about it too, just between the, difference of we're talking about culture, just difference between like an Urban Meyer led Jaguars team versus, the, first year or so of the Bengals before their resurgence, right? I mean, those guys are playing hard over in Cincinnati, and it translated into wins very quickly the following season. So, yeah, I mean, all things considered, I think it's, it sucks to not see your team win, but it's good to kind of see some pieces there where you're like, okay, maybe they've got something here, maybe they got the right coach and just need to get some guys in. So
And we went through it a few years ago when we had Steve Wilkes and they went out and drafted, what was his name? Rosen, and that team, that was a rough watch. That was my partner and I, Jay, we would watch those games and you could see guys just checking out in the second half, not tackling, just no spirit, no fire. And, it's obvious. When you see that, it's so obvious. And for this team, regardless of what the score is, those dudes are out there flying around, and it's just going to take time. It's going to take, front office to get the right mix of people in or players in here, continue to build, from the inside out. And then we'll see what the quarterback position, how that kind of unfolds as we move forward as well.
Yeah, I guess we can transition right into that then. I mean, the quarterback position you're talking about, you guys had Rosen and then you moved on to Kyler. And obviously right now he's hurt. I know his practice window opened up. He's doing some practicing as of late. But as far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like it's going to be Joshua Dobbs once again for this game. Like you said, I think he was part of that right turn at the beginning of the season. Played better than we were expecting, and now has kind of regressed to the mean a little bit in his past couple of games. So as far as the quarterback position, what do you think Arizona can do to kind of get that part of the offense back on track, given what Dobbs can give the offense while they wait for Kyler to get healthy, if he's going to play this year?
Well, you said the magic word, Peter, wait. Because right now, I keep trying to tell everybody out here, they're like calling for Joshua Dobbs' head, and I keep asking the question: what did you all expect from Joshua Dobbs? He came in here with 10 days to go before camp ended. No offseason, no OTAs, no nothing. You hand him the keys to the car, and he's learning on the fly as a backup quarterback. He is not one of these top tier, echelon players. So, what did you expect? We're getting what we thought we would get. It just, we got some good in the beginning, and everybody, I don't know if they got their hopes up, and then it's kind of going back to what I initially thought it was going to look like from the very start. And it's like, and then now we got people calling for Clayton Tune of all things. And I'm thinking to myself, do you know what that would look like? Hey, all due respect, Clayton Tune is not the answer to what people want to see out here. And at this point, Joshua's at least giving us a chance to stay in these games. It doesn't look pretty. He has kind of taken some steps back, but at the same time, what did you expect? So, until they make a decision on Kyler, whether it's, we're going to go ahead and give it a run with Kyler, or we might get to a point, we're 1-6 now. If we're 1-8, 1-9, what's the point of bringing him back if he's not 100% healthy? And also, you risk injury, you risk all type of things. It's not like he's coming back to sit behind a great offensive line with a great running game, with great weapons on the outside. We got a bad offensive line. We just lost Connor, who's on IR for the next few weeks, so he's not even going to be there. And we've got a mosh posh of wide receivers, with Marquise Brown as our number one. Most teams would have him as a 3 on their roster, So it's like, be careful what you ask for. We take it, let's let Joshua, drive this car as slow as he has to right now. We'll see what happens with Kyler. If they get to a point later in the season, they don't bring Kyler back, and you're also looking at maybe getting some high draft picks, the more we lose. What might be the answer is, hey, let's let Joshua drive this to about week 12, 13. Then if you want to take a look at the rookie just to see what you have, then you do that. But you don't pull that trigger now. And, you let Joshua just try to continue to get better. And, hopefully we can squeeze a win or two out. But like I said, what are we thinking in terms of, what do you expect from the man?
Well, Ed, one thing we wanted to definitely talk about, because in a way, everyone likes to talk about skill positions. They play fantasy or whatever. But what really drives offenses, in my opinion, is how good the offensive line is. If you can't get good holes and you can't get pass protection, you're not going to see these developing, plays downfield. So, Marquise Brown could do something, right? you gotta have time in the pocket. And we know that they invested in Paris Johnson in the draft and try to bolster the offensive line that way. How's that unit working so far? And I guess what's the development we're seeing?
Well, the tricky part about offensive lines, you can it was totally ignored during the Keim era. And you see, I don't have any here as it is, right? And every draft would come around and we would draft a wide receiver or a tight end. And we get to the 4th, 5th, and 6th round, then we want to start picking offensive linemen. And I'm thinking to myself, you don't build it like that. You got to spend some of those early draft picks on that position so you can get these guys in here. That's the one group. Fans don't understand. That's the one group that there are no substitutions on that group if you can help it. You can sub out wide receivers, defensive linemen, packages with your cornerbacks, You want a cohesive unit as far as the offensive line. That takes time. And we did go out and we got Paris, and it's going to take a lot more than just him, but it's a step in the right direction. And I'm glad they got him. They got him into the fire. He's learning, some good, some bad, some ugly every now and then. But that group in a whole, that's not something you turn over in a year or two. That's going to take time. And I'm glad they addressed it this past draft. I hope they use more and more capital. Maybe we get a great, free agent or two in here to kind of speed the process up. But, it's going to look ugly until we get 5 dudes that are all, top notch. And you guys know, you see it over there. It takes time. And that unit, man, I'm telling you, when they get it right, that's where it all starts on both sides of the ball, defensive and offensive fronts. And hopefully their thought process here is let's continue to pay attention to that and grow it. But we're off to a good start. Like I said, I was so happy when we picked Paris up last year. It was like, oh my God, it's like prayers answered. Somebody finally addressed that position. Like I said, now it's just going to take a little time to get it all right. But like I said, at least they took the first step.
Yeah, I saw because of injury, Tristan Colon is playing for you guys, and we know him well from his time in Baltimore. He played center for us, but it looks like he's filling in at guard now for you guys. So, I guess behind that offensive line, your running backs have had. You mentioned James Conner on IR, kind of been having an interesting run because Keaton Ingram, I believe, got hurt, and then Damari DeMarcado came in, but now Keontae Ingram is back. So what has that room been looking like? What kind of running schemes do you normally see? Is it more of a zone or a gap, or how does it usually work out?
That's another thing that's a work in progress. And, when you have somebody like Connor, he's the perfect dude for this offense because, he's a downhill guy and we needed that. Something to take pressure off of Dobbs, maybe, pick up 3 or 4 yards first down, so you're not looking at these 2nd and 3rd down long distances. You lose somebody like Connor, that takes the steam out of everything that we've been trying to accomplish here. And, it's just going to be something we're going to have these young guys going to have to step up, minus Connor, being in the room. The one thing I have been kind of excited about is even, whoever's behind, Dobbs in the backfield, we've stopped all this. Was it the pistol formation? We've at least gotten to a little bit of quarterback under center to try to help with that run game. And, like I said, when you look at our room compared to in each position, you look around the league and there's a reason why we're 1-6. We don't have a lot of talent in any of the rooms, barring tight end. We got, Ertz here. We've got Buda Baker at our safety position. We don't really have what you call great skill position players. That's something they're working on. And, moving forward, man, I'm telling you, every week is just a little bit of a guessing game in terms of what the game plan is because they're still trying to figure that out as well. Petzing has been doing a decent job with the talent he has. But, from week to week, when you're dealing with, like I said, our quarterback position, our offensive line condition, Connor goes down, it's a mystery as to what the game plan is going to be. I will say this one thing. We have been one of the most conservative teams that you can imagine. We haven't thrown the ball up the field, and that's for many different reasons, because we don't have a great offensive line, because we're going with a backup quarterback. All these different, our wide receiver group isn't the best out there. But I would imagine at some point hopefully they're looking at the season. The more we fall behind in the standings, I'm hoping they open it up a little bit, take the gloves off of Dobbs a little bit, let him throw the ball up the field a little more. He hasn't thrown a lot of interceptions, but he also hasn't thrown the ball up the field a whole bunch. So, maybe with the running game, they can get that going a little more, take the kitty gloves off, the training wheels, whatever you want to call it. I would always, with a team like ours, we should be a team that nobody knows what we're going to do from play to play and, series to series, fake punts, razzle dazzle, you name it. We should be doing it because what do we have to lose other than instead of losing by 20, we lose by 24, right? So at some point, hopefully they'll get to the point where, we open everything up, but, a running game, everything has to improve at this point.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, by definition of that, definitely seems like a trap game. And the Ravens tend to be playing down to opponents this season. I think that's one of the common themes. I'm playing up to good opponents as well, but
you know what you guys should do? If put on, I guarantee you, Harbaugh and the staff, go grab that Dallas tape. All you got to do is show them anything can happen. And that'll open up a lot of guys' eyes within that room.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to transition a little bit over to the receivers and tight ends, though. Because you mentioned the tight end room seems okay. I mean, you got Ertz, you've got McBride as well. I think that's a solid 1-2 combo kind of at the tight end position. But I kind of wanted to piggyback what you were saying earlier too, just about kind of opening it up and letting the guys play, take the glove offs a little bit. I think it's really interesting too, both from like a roster construction, right? You get a chance to take a look at some of these receivers because it seems like, I'd say for most Ravens fans, I think obviously Hollywood Brown, we recognize that name, but aside from that, with Hopkins gone, really, who are the other guys on this roster, and where do you kind of see them fit?
Well, I actually have to look myself from time to time because I forget who's in that room. It's when we lost Hopkins, and obviously there was no reason to keep him here. We weren't going anywhere. We've got some younger guys. There's one young man, I always forget his number 14. And my apologies because like I said, sometime in the roster, the name skipped my. Yeah. But we've got a young man number 14. I'll look at
Michael Wilson.
Yeah,
there you go. He's been shining a little bit. He's been. Thank you. I appreciate you guys actually help me out there. He's been shining a little bit, which has been a good thing for us. Marquise is going to be Marquise. We just. Like I said, we got a long way to go with this roster at the skill positions, especially. And you did mention, Chris, tight end room that's a solid a group, obviously, especially with Ertz being in there. He's you would think that Ertz would be more of a weapon they'd be using because every young and struggling quarterback, tight ends and those over the middle, that's like so valuable. A great tight end. We haven't really utilized Ertz that much. I see McBride's getting into the game plan a little more. But like I said, once again, when you're with the roster like this, we're struggling at all facets in terms of trying to create big plays. And, it shows, and I'm not sure whether some of it is just non-confidence in turning it loose with Dobbs, but maybe it's just because we don't really have the weapons on the outside.
So it's really interesting. It's funny. A lot of what you're saying, reminding me of this team, is reminding me a few years ago. We're also big baseball fans here, and the Orioles back 4 or 5 years ago, we were just completely rebuilding, and you're just looking at this team, and you're just like, okay, who are the guys individually that we're going to get excited about? Because we know that the overall outcome of the season, that's already a done deal, but seeing a lot of that. But there were still some games, even though in those seasons, 2018, 2019, the Orioles, they went on a couple runs here and every now and again, would go on win 5 of 7, win 6 of 8, which was a big deal in that little bit, gave you something to root for. When we're looking at this Cardinals offense, from what you've seen with the Ravens defense, what do you think is a formula for this offense that could work against the Ravens defense that the coaches will have to prepare for on our side?
Oh my goodness. Ball control, and it sounds so boring too. Ball control, keep the hands out of your offense, keep the ball away from your offense as much as possible. Try to create some type of running game, and then we have to surprise you guys in some form or fashion. If we continue on with the dink and dunk and dropping Dobbs back, 3 and 5 step drops, and asking him to survey the field, which he's been making more mistakes now. We start turning the ball over or just make it where we're not even possessing the ball at all. It's going to be a cakewalk for you guys. Against Dallas, what surprised me the most was they utilized Dobbs' legs a little bit, and that took Dallas totally by surprise. A couple of, Dobbs going out the backside, a couple of those, read options and stuff like that. I think you got to get him more involved with the running game. It's not like you're saving him for next year or anything like that. I know what do we have to lose? I just think we need to open it up. There's a combination of running the ball, opening it up a little more with the deep, some deeper routes and stuff like that, and maybe a gadget or two here. We tried a fake punt this past weekend against Seattle. If you guys get a chance to look at that, if you want a quick laugh, go ahead and look at that one. It was, it was rough. And I said to my partner this morning too, it's like, so we're going to run a fake punt, and they forget that there's probably somebody upstairs in the booth with the binoculars, right? We're watching, right? And they see our backup quarterback run onto the field in the punt formation, and they're probably thinking, okay, what they got their backup quarterback coming out. What does that probably tell us? They're probably going to try to do something silly here. So, that was a panic move of all panic moves. I think they thought they wanted to do something creative. They just couldn't pull it off. But as far as how we win this game, we got to possess the ball, be a little more creative with how we, because we can't run the ball just straight up against your front. We got to get on the edges. We got to do something to create some big plays. That would be my biggest thing. Create big plays, some chunk plays, because the longer we try to just dink and dunk up the field, the more room there is for error. We saw that this past weekend against Seattle. We had a couple drives that failed at the end because, we can't sustain them just going up the field, and, interception here. One guy actually got called back, but we just had to be more creative and try to keep the guys off your toes. If we try to get in the middle of the ring and just, trade punches, which is going to be a long, long day.
I guess if we want to move over to the defense, it's an interesting group. Definitely been investing in your edge rushers from what I can see in the draft. How does that development started off so far, and are they getting good pass rush?
It's been pretty good. We let so many guys go from last year. We got a group that was a proverbial high motor. We don't have what you call. We went from having Chandler Jones, Watt, and others to this group we have now. So I think what we've been doing is through Zaven Collins, they've been moving him around a little bit, and then getting creative with some of the pressures and bringing some blitzes. The only problem when you bring the blitzes, you're opening up your secondary to all kind of trouble. So it's kind of like rolling the dice. We try to pressure, but if we don't get there, it's going to open us up on the back end. So we don't, as far as our front, we don't have anybody that I would say is wrecking shop up there. But when they work together as a group, they look pretty good. And that's been impressive. And then obviously the scheme is what it's all about. If you can, get some guys coming free. We put some pressure on Geno this past week, which caused him to make a couple of mistakes. So if we can do that type of thing, the only problem is Geno is not Lamar. And oh my goodness, you saw what Lamar can do if you don't corral him right away and you give him too much time back there, he's going to dice you up. But then you turn your back on him for a minute and he's gone. So that's probably keeping our defensive coaches up. They're going to be thinking about Lamar all week and how do we stop this? And I would say almost you can't stop it. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like, going back to the Detroit game, going into it, when we were talking with Glover about it, is that the defense was kind of similar. Like I do think the talent level in Detroit's roster is a little bit higher, but That being said, there were a lot of names that you really didn't recognize, at least around the league. I think it was a lot of guys playing really well and just knowing their assignment, doing things real well. And it seemed like in the first half against Detroit, it was kind of that Lamar X factor of just, being able to get out of a sack, escape, buy a couple seconds, and then, that touchdown pass to Aguilar was all on Lamar to be able to buy time for that. I mean, he was dead to rights. But, eventually, I think Detroit kind of lost a little bit. And then I think some of their technique kind of broke down because it got a little bit easier. You didn't have to have Lamar kind of, make those plays all the time. They became a little bit more routine. But, that being said, like I said earlier, it's a week-to-week thing with this Ravens team. 1 week we score 5 touchdowns, and then the week before we score 6 field goals. So anything can happen. I think if a team's playing really well, they're communicating really well, I think there's always a chance.
Yeah, and the thing with Lamar, you can't account for those plays that he just goes off. And we have the same thing out here with Kyler Murray when healthy, So we've experienced the headache that he can cause other, defenses. And it's a shame that Kyler isn't really healthy right now, because he would have been great to simulate what it's going to be like to get after Lamar this weekend. But like I said, because you really can't, you don't know how fast Lamar is and what he can do. You can look at it on film, but then when you get out there on the field, it's a whole new beast and animal. And like I said, we can prepare all we want. It's going to be a true test to reel him in. And I'd be interested. Do you spy on him? Do you got to be obviously disciplined in your lanes if you're going after him, but you can talk it until it's time to go after and actually try to tackle him. And I mean, that could get ugly real fast, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of game plan they come up with to try to attack him.
Yeah, it's a real shame Kyler won't be playing in this game. I mean, like you're saying, Kyler can do some really special things with the football in his hand too when a play breaks down. And man, hopefully someday we'll get that matchup. I don't think Kyler and Lamar have played against each other. I'm trying to think. Maybe in his rookie year was 2019, right? Kyler?
Yes.
Okay. So the second NFL game, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we played you guys in week 2 in Baltimore. But Kyler, was really early in his career, so I don't think it was too much of a back and forth game, if I'm recalling correctly. But yeah, I think you're hitting on some interesting things here, though, when you're talking about, what the coaches are going into, looking at having to play against a guy like Lamar. What's the game plan going to be? With your experience in the NFL, thinking back to it, I guess back in your day, it would have been guys like Dan Marino, Terrell Davis. How much does that really change what a defense wants to do? Is it just, you're really heightened and you're just really making sure where that guy is all the time on the field, or is the teams generally are really making some big changes to what they're doing from usually when you're playing a guy who has that ability to just take a game over and just win it single-handedly if things go off the rails?
Yeah, what you try to do, and I've been, around teams when you're planning for that dynamic player, you try to simulate it as much as possible. I've been on teams like, the quarterbacks we had many, many years ago weren't as, they're much more athletic these days. We used to, when we did face a quarterback that might cause us some trouble, they used to actually bring wide receivers in to simulate running the offense, because you wanted somebody back there with the speed to try to, kind of emulate what you're going to be up for. And then, one of the things you do is you extend the plays, because Lamar has the ability to do that. So, you might run a play and it might be broken, and it doesn't end at the whistle. It just continues on, because we know Lamar escapes, and next he's 60 yards up the field, that type of thing. So, it all depends, what the focus is. I remember one of my funnest times when I was playing was being a tight end, we played Denver a few times throughout my career. And those guys, it was always fun being Denver tight ends that week because they were really innovative with what they were doing with Shannon Sharp and different things like that. So it's kind of the same theory, you try to show as much as you show the deal. Like if we're doing scout team for our defense, you try to show them as realistic as you can. This is how they're going to do things. On the flip side, I remember preparing for somebody like a Romanowski, on the defensive side. So, he was a real jump around guy. So, we'd have somebody, just doing all kind of crazy stuff on the other side, basically pissing you off because that's what Phil Romanowski did as well in real time. So you try to simulate it as much as possible, depending on the actual player that you're trying to show off. But, it's hard to emulate a Lamar though, because he is so doggone fast, and he's just fast, but he's a great thrower as well. So he brings so many things that are going to give this Cardinals defense fits. And I know you guys are thinking just like I am. It's just a matter of which Ravens team shows up. Is it the team that we saw against Detroit the other day, or against the Steelers a couple weeks ago, whenever it was? You just never know sometimes.
All too true. I'm definitely hoping, that's my hope for this game. My number one hope is just Ravens do come out and look like you aren't, keep the pedal somewhat to the metal. They don't have to have 38 points. I actually don't expect them to, right? But they just need to not look like they're having a hangover from the Lions game. They got to, you got to just go out there and play well, play competently, good ball control. That'd be great. But you look at this defense and you just don't want to overlook it, because from the Ravens perspective, we were super worried about our corners coming into this season. 3rd round pick, a bunch of guys off the street. Well, it turns out we were able to scheme it up real nice, and our secondary played great, and those guys excelled well. And with a defensive minded head coach and all that going on, you could start seeing that from them. I understand that your defense might not have had the best success so far, but it doesn't mean that it can't start clicking. So I guess from that perspective, what are the players you would say to take a look out for, or you feel like are ascending?
Oh my goodness. I always got to keep your eye out for Budda Baker. That's our anchor back there for one. The problem with that is if your best defensive player is making all the tackles and shining, if that's your safety, two things are happening. He's either spending a lot of time at the line of scrimmage, or he's cleaning up stuff deep in your secondary. So, the big thing for us, if nothing else, like I said, get Budda off. Zaven Collins has to come to play our front as a unit. The crazy part is this isn't the game. I don't think we're going to have one guy shine. This is going to be a group effort of everybody rallying to the ball, staying in their lanes if they're rushing, forcing him to do things that he's maybe just not ready to do, that type of thing. So, golly, this game actually, this is the first. I'm starting to get scared the more we play, because teams are starting to see where our holes are. I think it all started with the Cincinnati game a few weeks ago. We had, and I'll point out one last thing for both our offense and defensive side. We are not making adjustments as the games go on. We're coming into each game with a game plan, and then as soon as it either gets exploited or we see that it works a little bit, we just stay with that, not realizing, and that's because we have a young coaching staff, not realizing that, hey, the other guys over on the other side, they're also looking to see what's working and what isn't, and they're looking at those little tablets that everybody gets now. They're making adjustments. We just continue on as if, we're playing the same game all the way through, and that'll get us. So what you'll see, and that's why some of these games, we're very competitive in the first half. We come out both sides of the ball in the second half. Yesterday we came out, couldn't score a point in the second half. And then we also, we continue to lose these second half leads when we have them. And that's because we're not making the proper adjustments. And if any game, this is one where we're going to have to adjust, cover the tight end. My God, we've let tight ends in the past abuse us. So Andrews, he's probably thinking this is going to be a big game for him. If we do, watch this. If we do make some stops and have a decent first half, watch how the second half is totally flip-flop because we haven't made the proper adjustments. And a lot of that's on our coaching staff, and they're learning on the fly. This is all new to a lot of them as well. So I'm not grading them critically. I'm just saying as they continue to learn and get better at their jobs, they're going to figure some of this stuff out. But that's been one of our biggest bugaboos is we'll come out and play decent on both sides of the ball, but then we don't make the changes to counteract the changes that are being made on the other side, and then we end up getting rolled second half in some of these games. And like I said, mark my word, I usually can tell from the first 10 minutes or so how the day is going to go. If we can stay in this game early and keep it close, we got a chance. I'm not saying we'll win it, but at least make it entertaining. If you come out and just roll us from the very beginning, it's going to be one of those long days, and we're due for one of those. So this might be a game where you guys probably don't have a lot to worry about come the second half.
Well, I guess with that we can go into our predictions for the game. We usually do a score prediction and a bowl prediction, which could be like a game scenario or a player prop that you kind of believe in. And as our guest, you're welcome to go first, or if you want to defer, you won the coin toss.
Yeah, I'll go first. Man, after the way you guys looked last week, and we're coming off struggling a little bit. We don't have what I would call great home field advantage. If there are Ravens fans on this side of the country, they'll find their way here to Arizona, and there'll be plenty of seats for them to have. And so, we kind of lose that home field. Lamar is I'm telling you, he's a tough cover. And I haven't even, obviously we're early in the week. We haven't seen what the spread is, but I'm imagining it's going to be pretty high. My prediction for this game was a one Rocky movie where Clubber Lang said pain. And this might be one of those painful games for us. And I'm thinking this is one of those 34 we scored one touchdown in the last two games. So let's say we score another one. This could be one of those 34-13 games for me. I think you guys might come over here and roll us.
Man, that's I guess that's definitely possible, but I hate think, like, whenever we have these games that you feel like are quote unquote layups, it reminds you that the NFL has a lot more parity than you think, right? And I just I try not to get too over my skis anymore.
When you have that, when it seems like you have that advantage, it's hard. But like you said, look at what happened this past weekend. But every now and then, Alec, it does work out the way it's supposed to as well. So this could be one of those weeks where it works out pretty good for you guys.
Yeah, I will say for myself, watching not live. I was not able to watch the game live. I was able to watch it later. But when I was able to watch it, what it reminded me of was 2 years ago, 2021, also a game when I was out of town. The Ravens, we were expecting to have a big matchup, a really tight game, but with the Chargers. That was supposed to be a really tight game, like we were expecting was going to be with Detroit, and we rolled over them by some very similar score to what happened here. And I was trying to think, I was like, oh man, did that carry over? I couldn't remember what game was next. Next game, Ravens came out flat and got crushed by Cincinnati at home. So again, just shows you week to week league. Ravens really have only played one complete game all year, which was against Detroit. But it put together some really good halves, I think. So there's reason to think that this can continue. But like Alec is saying, even though our score predictions don't have any bearing on the actual outcome, I never like to feel too confident with this group until they string together a few of these games like we just saw against Detroit. So traveling out west, they traveled well to London. I'm just going to say that the offense still does well, but not as well as last week. I'm going to go a little more conservative, 23-11 Ravens. Okay. My bold prediction, Ravens are leading the league in sacks. Surprising given how many vets we've had to bring in for injuries. But what you were saying about the offensive line makes me feel like that's going to be a matchup the Ravens are going to do well in. And I'll have the Ravens at least 6 sacks for this game, which will be higher than what they're averaging, which is 4.2 per game. So put that in for the bold prediction there.
Nice. I did look up the early lines for this game. It's 8.5 point favorite for the Ravens, a 43.5 over under. And I'm not going to try to do quick math on what that exactly means. I guess it's like 30. No, that's too big of a delta. I guess like 25 ish to 17. Yeah, I'm over here thinking to myself, I think I just imagine we sputter a bit, right? Last week or 2 weeks ago, we couldn't get into the red zone and execute. Last week, everything was a touchdown. Let's go somewhere in the middle, right? Some of the drives are going to falter. Some of them are going to, go for that. So I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit like lower scoring. It's not going to be, a shootout, and the Ravens are still going to be able to win, but not by as comfy of a margin as last week. We're not going to be end of the second quarter and seeing the Cardinals go for it on fourth down. They're not going to be that far behind, right? It's going to be a reasonable football game. I'm gonna go with I guess 27-13. 20. I feel like Arizona's gonna find a way. I actually really like Michael Wilson. He was a guy that if he stayed healthy, he looked like he could be a really excellent receiver. Had a good combine, showed some tools in his limited game action. Like I said, he had a lot of trouble staying healthy. So keep an eye on him in this game, and obviously we know what Hollywood can do. So I think it might be a little bit closer than some fans might think after what we saw against the Lions. And then my bold prediction. This is a tough one, man. I guess for me, I want to see the inside linebacker interception. So I might go back to that well. We saw last week, it almost happened with Rowe. I'm going to go back to that well. I feel like they're due. They're playing so well as a unit, and they just haven't had that turnover yet.
Okay.
Here, I thought I was going to be unique. I was thinking Roquan interception for the same reasons, Alec. But no, that's okay. I'll go in a different direction. But I don't know. I guess I was pessimistic last week. I think Glover convinced me that the Lions were going to win, and then they didn't, and everything's backwards. So what does that tell me? Absolutely nothing. I'm just going to do whatever I feel like at this point. So yeah, I'd be really bummed, I think, if the Ravens lost this one. I'll say that they're going to win. I don't know. I'll do. I'll say they go 30 again. I think it could be doable. I think Lamar gets a couple of touchdowns. I think it's possible. I'll say 30-15. Why not? I don't know if the Cardinals put up 5 field goals or 2 touchdowns with a 2-point conversion. That's not my prediction, but I will say since I can't go Roquan interception, I got a backup one. I'll go Lamar has at least 3 touchdowns again. I don't know if they're passing or passing combined rushing, but I think he's going to be riding some more touchdowns.
Very cool. Well, Ed, really a pleasure to have you on the show. Love the fact we have another person from the Bleav Network on, Bleav in Cardinals. You can check that out if you want to hear more about this matchup going forward. And definitely check out the whole network in general. They have a lot of high-quality shows. And again, Ed, it was really a pleasure to have you on the show and hear all your insights.
My pleasure, man. And you guys keep up the great work, and hopefully we'll see you down the road.
All right. Well, you can find us on Twitter at OneWinningPod. You can find us on Threads as well, OneWinningPod, or email us, onewinningpod@gmail.com. Go Ravens, and we'll talk to you next week.